What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the Changeup here on the network, where we break down everything Major League Baseball has to offer. Of course, with me, as always, we have my co-host Bryanna Winner. You can find Bryanna at bwinner12. How are you doing today, Bryanna?
I'm doing okay. I wish the Angels would just do something instead of just at 500.
Yeah,
But it
it's
is, or a
better.
little over 500. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Still, I envy it. I mean, I wish we were at 500 right now myself on the Padres side of things, but we'll get to both of that. In a
What is going on with your body?
I'm just hoping that it's a phase. The bats are kind of cold, things like that. I'm not sure what the full. It's been frustrating, and I'm trying to keep it light still. My Padre report, I'm only going to focus on the positives because this is a family show, and if I get into the negatives, I don't know if it will be a family show. So it might not be a very long Padre report, but we will get into some of the positives that are happening for the Padres, not the negatives, because like I said, I don't want to get pushed to that point that forces parents to put the little children away. But anyways, with that being said, we are basically 2 months into baseball. We're approaching Memorial Day as we were recording on Saturday here, the 27th of May, just a few days before Memorial Day. And it's a good opportunity to take a moment and look at the standings, kind of where we sit. Still early, but we are obviously seeing some rising and falling in these divisions, as we've talked about all season, but just to get a better idea of them now. But we will start in the American League East. That is records wise, and I think probably just based on what everyone's seen on paper and on the field, it has to be the best division in all of baseball. You have the Tampa Bay Rays, no surprise after they got off to. They are 38-15, 4 games ahead of the very surprising Baltimore Orioles, who are 33-18. The Yankees 30-23. They sit 8 games back already. Boston definitely doing better than I expected. They're 27-24. However, that's 10 games back of the Rays, and a bit of a disappointing story in Toronto. They are 27-25, 10.5 games back. It is interesting to note that all 5 of these teams would either be tied or in first in the American League Central. So it's a little unfortunate for some of these teams playing in such a tough division. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the American League East?
Well, they'd also be in the top 3 of the West
Yeah.
as well. We're not even going to talk about the low-hanging fruit there. So, I mean, we kind of knew the American League has been the better division of the American League. East has been the better division. West team in all of baseball. And that's not going to change until they move. So we kind of expected these to do very well. Obviously, the Orioles we expect, but I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah, I'm very, very interested to see how Baltimore kind of ends up when all this is said and done. I think you can pretty much pencil in the Rays to probably be the winners of this division. The Yankees already dealing with a lot of injury issues. We know that they deal with that very regularly, and it doesn't always work out, obviously, for them. 8 games back already, and then of course Boston I think is already shooting above their weight, being 3 games over 500 with that pitching staff. I think that'll bring them back to life. Very interested to see what happens with Baltimore. I really do want to see this team continue on. doing what they're doing, but it is still early and it is a very young team, and we are going to get into those quote unquote dog days of summer where the baseball season, you get into games 110, 120. It turns into a grind every single day. We'll see if these kids essentially in baseball terms are ready to handle that. But moving on to the American League Central, we have at the top the Minnesota Twins at 26 and 25. They have a 2-game lead on, I guess, somewhat surprising Detroit Tigers. They are 23 and 26. Cleveland, they've been in a bit of a struggle lately. We'll get to them in a bit later. They are 22 and 28, 3.5 games back. The White Sox, they continue to struggle, 22 and 31, only 5 games back, however. And of course, the Kansas City Royals, they are 15 and 37. I'll tell you what, Kansas City has to be just absolutely enthused that the A's are as bad as they are, because the Royals might be on the historic pace if it was not for the A's. But anyways, they are 11.5 games back. It's pretty interesting. We talk about Baltimore, or Baltimore or even Boston in the East, despite being 3 games above 500 for Boston, they're 10 games back. You look at Detroit, they're 3 games below 500, and they're only 2 games back in their division. The AL Central is going to be a bit of a fight to be average, I think, towards the end. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the American League Central?
I mean, to be fair, that's the Central in general, whether it's National League or American League. They are all fighting to be average. So no matter what, we knew that it wasn't going to be a great division. I mean, obviously, Detroit is the surprise here. White Sox, I was really hoping they would have done more. And I think everybody would have been hoping they would have done more. And nobody can beat the A's' worst start in history with 10 and 40. So
yeah, but goodness, 15 and 37 is woo.
Still better than 10 and 43.
Yep. You're right. You are correct. But yeah, it's that fight. It's going to kind of be unfortunate that they're going to probably be at least in the American League, I can almost guarantee it, there's going to be a playoff or a team that doesn't make the playoffs that will have a better record than an American League Central team, unless one of these teams, unless the Twins or someone goes on a run, but I don't see that happening. And one of these teams is going to have a home playoff series, at least that wild card 3-game series. So it is what it is. You can get upset about it. There's going to be an American League team that will probably miss out on a playoff despite having a better record. But as they say, them the breaks, and you move on. So what can you do? Still very early to be thinking about any of this, but we are anyways. So moving on to the American League West, we have the Texas Rangers, maybe one of the biggest surprises outside of Baltimore in the American League. They're 32 and 18. They have a 3-game lead on the Houston Astros, 29 and 21. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, I know Bryanna doesn't like to be hanging out around 500, but they are only 5 games back. They're 28 and 24.
I don't like hanging out behind the Astros either.
You're right. But, compared to what it's been of the last few years, I think it's better than normal, I should say. But you also have the Seattle Mariners at 26 and 25. They're 6.5 games back. And I mean, what do you say?
The team who should be named.
What do you say? The Oakland / Las Vegas / quadruple / maybe triple A's are 10 and 43. They are 23.5 games back. They are 1 and 9 in their last 10, with currently on a 9-game losing streak. The only reason I went deep into that is because the Oakland A's are retired from the up list and the down list. It's early, folks. It's 11 on Memorial Day weekend. You'll have to bear with me there. But anyways, no, they've been retired from the down list. So I have to get the shots in now, because despite your retirement, A's, that doesn't mean you're safe. This is a joke of everything that is good in baseball. They are on pace to win 31 games. Wow. But anyways, Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the American League West?
I mean, let's just wait until the end of this regular season where all shots will be fired on the A's for their horrible record. I'm curious to know, what's the worst record in baseball in general,
So
like in the
modern
history?
day is, I believe, the Mets. They went 42 and 120. Don't quote me on that. I had it in last week or 2 week ago's notes. But they are on pace to shatter that record. 42 wins is the fewest. Now, I think 1899 are Cleveland Spiders. I really wanted Cleveland to be the Spiders because I think the 1899 Cleveland Spiders, they went like 12 and 150 or something like that. It was historically bad. But in terms of the quote unquote modern baseball, which is post 1900, it would be, I believe, the Mets and the Cubs. But once again, don't quote me on that. I can probably pull that up as I check that. But I do know for a fact the A's are on pace to shatter that record. So it's a disaster.
The fact that they have a 189 percentage and Mariners, who are in fourth, have a percentage of 510 speaks volumes.
Yeah.
At least the top of this division is good.
Yeah.
But I need Ohtani and Trout to make a playoff though, so the Angels really need to they need to do something.
You're right.
I don't want to lose Ohtani. I don't want to lose him.
No, you're right. And this isn't good enough right now, is even though I do think it is good, kind of from an outsider from what I've seen from the Angels over the past few years. And, doing this show with you, usually by this time, it's started to get dark. And I want to keep it as light as possible, but I can definitely understand where you're coming from in that, kind of looking at the way the playoffs are shaking out. Your third place in the American League West is not going to get you a playoff spot. So,
but we are the sixth best team in the American League in general right now.
Yes.
So I'll take that.
Yeah.
I will gladly take that.
And you have two of the best players in all baseball.
If they miss out on the playoffs because of the Central, I'm going to be so mad.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, and we all know.
I hope it doesn't. I really do, because I don't know if we'll be able to record that week. And if we do, it may just be Bryanna just staring and giving yes or no answers until we get to the winner's circle, and then she gives her take. But no, I hope not. But the A's at this point, or excuse me, the Angels at this point have to just continue winning the games that they can. It's too early to worry about other teams. But for the Angels, got to make a move here. It's kind of at that.
But if that does happen, I will scream. But if that
does happen,
I'm going to scream.
And I will hear you all the way here in Southern California from Lake Havasu.
Oh, you'd be screaming. You'd be screaming with me.
Amen. Yeah. So moving on to the National League East side of things. As I get my notes back up, we have the Atlanta Braves 31 and 20. They are in first place, have a sizable 4.5 game lead over the 27 and 25 Mets. The Miami Marlins, a bit of a surprise here, at least for me. They're at 500, 26 and 20. They are 5.5 games back. The equally, but for the opposite reason, surprising Philadelphia Phillies, they are 24 and 27. They are 7 games back. And the Washington Nationals, I think they're playing better ball than I expected them, but still not anything that matters. They are 22 and 29, 9 games behind the Braves, probably fit into 5th place and be last place by the end of the year. But it's kind of what was expected from the Nationals. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the National League East?
Hey, the Nationals aren't the worst team in the National League.
Yeah.
That would go to the West, but not by much.
Not by much at all.
Not by much. And the same thing goes for the Reds, who have the same winning percentage as the Nationals. So, and Central sucks.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is kind of what we expected, though, in the East. Obviously, not the Phillies where they're standing, but
yeah,
like the Nationals we figured would be in last. Braves and Mets we figured would be at the top. So, I mean, this isn't anything that we weren't expecting compared to the Central in the American League and possibly in the National League if you look at the Cardinals.
Yeah, and look, for the Phillies, this is pretty much where they were last year. This was where they were, maybe not standings wise, but at least record wise, this is where they were. Now, it kind of cost them or forced them to fire a manager. I don't think they're going to do that this year. That would be a bit ridiculous to do that back-to-back years. I think Rob Thompson's earned at least a full season, but we'll see if they can kind of turn things around. I think at the very least they can, probably move up to third, maybe get past the Mets, but I don't think anybody outside of Atlanta is winning this division. Even with all the injury issues that the Braves have dealt with, this team, they're a really complete team. I think outside of them who shall not be named up north, are the best team in all of baseball, or excuse me, the National League. Bring that back a little bit. So I expect the Braves to kind of sit into this spot. I don't see a whole lot of movement in this division going forward. Like I said, maybe Philadelphia moves up a spot or two, but I think this is how this division kind of ends up unless something absolutely catastrophic happens to one of these teams. So moving on
most likely that will be the Mets. Most likely that will be the Mets and their injuries.
Yes, you're right. And just kind of, I don't know, age catching up to them. I think they're starting to realize that signing two 40-year-old plus pitchers, no matter what they've done the last few seasons. That's bold strategy.
What is it with New York teams and their injuries, though?
I think it's the water. I think, I'm not breaking any news here, but there are a lot of rats in New York City, folks. And you just wonder, hey, is it in the water? Is there something in the water? A lot of rats, something in the water. I don't know. Something to think about. But you're right. There's been both sides of things. Lots and lots of injuries, but we'll see how both teams deal with it. So far, both teams over 500, but underperforming per their fan bases. So speaking of underperforming, moving on to the National League Central. You have, the Milwaukee Brewers, where I think a lot of people somewhat expected them to be. They're 27-24. They only have a half-game lead, however, over the bit of a surprise Pittsburgh Pirates, who are still sticking their nose in things. They're 26-24. And then we, of course, have the Cubs at 22-28. That finds them 4 games back. And both the Cardinals and Reds are 5 games back, but you have the Cardinals above the Reds slightly at 23-30, while the Reds are 22-29. Looks like, at least at this point, a 2-horse race. And even then, it's a question of how long can Pittsburgh stick around with Milwaukee. Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the National League Central?
Well, Milwaukee, I wasn't expecting to be first. But, I mean, from anything we've seen with the Cardinals, it seems like they are figuring it out. I mean, obviously, they have been switching places back and forth with the Cubs at the moment, which obviously I'm not happy about, but was expected. But I think the Cardinals could probably, just like the Phillies, get a place or two. I don't think they're going to be able to win the division, but it seems the Cardinals have figured out something. They've got they have a long way to go, but they've figured out whatever they needed to figure out, because they were a lot worse.
They were the worst team in the National League like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so that was something. They
figured something out.
Yeah, you're right.
They figured something out. So I'll take that. The Pirates, look, they were off to a hot start, and then they just slowly started to decline, and I expect that to still happen.
Yeah.
When? Who knows? But it's going to happen. Pirates are not going to stick around in second.
No, they'll be around that 78 win mark, if they really get rolling. But I think it is a 2-team race, and kind of like you alluded to, I think that second team is the Cardinals. Now obviously they have work to do, 5 games back, but I mean, we haven't hit June 1. 5 games is nothing. And as we've said, look, they're the only team that's played above 500 in their last 10. Now they're only 6-4, so it's hardly world beaters. But anyways, it just kind of shows that this division, it's not like the East, or pretty much it's not like any other division, right? Like that you can be mediocre for probably at least 65 to 70% of the season, turn it on at the right time, and probably win this game by 5 or win this division by 5 or 6 games. So I think it's going to come down to Milwaukee and St. Louis when it's all said and done. And right now, Milwaukee, I think, has to just think of this time as essentially getting their head start. Because as we both talked about, St. Louis is coming. It might not be as fast as they want it to, but I think we see St. Louis very close to Milwaukee, or at least whoever wants to be in first place when it's all said and done. But finally, we are going to talk about a division I don't really want to talk about, but we're all professionals here, so we got to do our due diligence. It's the National
I
League.
can talk about the AL West. You can talk about the National League West.
It's well, I feel like I got a lot worse than you, but you're right.
Yes, but I wouldn't have minded the Diamondbacks still in first. I would not have minded that.
Who wouldn't? But I do like their fights. You, of course, unfortunately do have the Los Angeles Dodgers at the top of this division. They're 31-21. They only have a game and a half lead, I should say, on the Arizona Diamondbacks. The D-backs are 29-22. Resurgent Giants, who we'll get to in a bit as well. They are 26-25, good enough for third place, 4.5 games back. And yes, if you've been keeping track at home, that means the San Diego Padres are in fourth place. They are 24-27, 6.5 games behind them boys up north. And finally, we have the Colorado Rockies, who unfortunately for the moment have the worst record in the National League, if only by a half game. But they do 22-30. They are 9 games behind the Dodgers. Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the National League West?
Like I said, I wouldn't have minded the Diamondbacks still in first, but they've struggled lately. But I know that's also just their schedule is starting to get a lot harder. And the Diamondbacks had a nice coast coming into this.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously they are definitely the shock of the West. Because I was expecting them to be in last. I'm going to be honest. I expected the Diamondbacks to be in last.
Okay.
And I've been proven very, very wrong. So I honestly wouldn't mind if the Diamondbacks get a wild card spot, but I do want your Padres to get their asses into gear. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, obviously the Padres, similar to the Cardinals, right? Now, I can't sit here and say the Padres have figured it out necessarily, while I do feel like the Cardinals have, once again, not as quickly as they want. But for me, this division is not the Central, though. You're already 6.5 games behind a team that you're 1-5 against so far this year. A team that's been playing really well. And another part of this, you're behind 3 teams in general. So we can't even really worry about the Dodgers right now. The Padres aren't even in that position. I don't want to focus on them too much because I'll get to them in a bit. But I'll at least somewhat pat myself on the back. I had the Diamondbacks third place in this division. I thought they'd be good, or I'm sorry, I thought they'd be better, but I didn't think they'd be this good, I should say. 29-22, and essentially kind of going toe-to-toe with the Dodgers. Only a game and a half back. It would be interesting to see. And then obviously the Giants kind of coming out of nowhere, doing their thing. I kind of wrote them off early in the season, and next thing you know, you look up and they're beyond the Padres in that situation. I think the Dodgers are going to win this division. I don't think either of us, as much as we'd like to, see someone else win this division, I don't think either of us are expecting anyone to do that. But it's going to be difficult to see how the Padres can really get back into at least the race, let alone second place. But we shall see how that all wraps up. But that's how the standings look at the moment. It is time now to jump into the winner's circle with Bryanna. She's going to give us a little bit inside into what's going on with the Angels. Bryanna, the floor is yours.
I mean, there's still not much, but obviously moved down into third. Unfortunately, Houston is sole possession of second. We're 2 games back of Houston, 5 of Texas. They struggled with Baltimore and went 1-2 against them, which, again, I can't be mad at Baltimore. I really cannot be mad at Baltimore. I do want to see them make the playoffs, just not as much as the Angels. They did go 2-1 against Minnesota, which obviously is helping the Central there. They swept Boston, and I'm sure we're going to get to Boston sooner Yeah, no, no, you don't have Boston there.
Not yet.
Boston,
Not yet.
I thought no, I thought you had them in the down list. Boston has struggled, and I wouldn't expect anything less of a sweep. They lost to Miami yesterday, but in the loss to Miami, we did see a brand new closer as Sam Bachman was called up from AA. He went 2 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. I mean, not bad.
I like that.
Not bad for a major league. It's not bad.
You said
Obviously,
AA?
they still lost. Yeah.
So just no AAA, correct?
Correct.
Wow.
I saw AA.
Very nice. Good for him. Hey, I mean that shows that they saw whatever they needed to see in AA. So good for him.
He was their top pitching prospect, I believe, and he was in the 2021 draft.
There it is. Was that the pitcher draft?
No.
Like no. Okay. Anyways, sorry.
It might have been.
Because I think 2020 was the pitcher draft, right?
Was it 20 or 21?
Because 2020 was the COVID year where I think there were only 5 rounds. So I think that was it.
That was so he was in the pitcher draft.
Okay, gotcha.
And that was exactly what the Angels needed, was a pitcher draft.
Yes, when they decided to just grab them all and see which one stuck.
I mean, granted, they did get 2 position players as well, but they needed the pitching. And I am all for it. I mean, he got called up before Ben Joyce did, so. I mean, I know Ben Joyce still has to deal with like control issues, but
yeah.
I mean, that's probably why they may move him up next year, though.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm kind of excited for when Ben Joyce comes in.
Me too. I mean, I saw him pitch at Tennessee, where he's throwing 104 miles an hour. And I just felt like that and aluminum bats, it sounded like a really bad proposition, but you know, I mean, obviously he's through that now. And you're right, the control issues. 104 is great, not when you can't control it, however. That's scary.
I would not want to be a batter in that situation.
Nope.
So they've got to finish off their series with Miami on Sunday. Obviously, they haven't started their game yet today. They are going to be facing the White Sox Monday through Wednesday. And then, unfortunately, it could get worse in the standings as they have a 4-game series with Houston Thursday to Sunday.
Oh, boy.
And it doesn't help that Houston is facing the A's this weekend.
Oh, little appetizer to get them ready.
I don't know who the Astros have in the middle of the week, but I'm not liking this combo.
Yeah, it's going
to especially if the Angels are going to struggle against Miami. Although Ohtani is pitching today, so we'll see.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to need you to soften the Marlins up. Padres got them this week, so.
I need to, yes, I would love to soften them up and beat them, but we'll see.
Yeah, you focus on the Angels side of things first, and we'll take all the positives we can get. But yeah, on the Padres side of things, positive. Look, I'm going to stay positive. It's not a situation where I'm going to point out anything too negative. Obviously, the Manny Machado injury, him going to the IL, has to be talked about. It is definitely a negative. But we are going to see, you know, how this team depth will be tested. It was a very small fracture. Could have been worse. It came on a fastball that hit his hand. I think it was, I forget who it was against. Oh, shoot, I forget who it was against. I apologize. But Padres did end up winning that game. So it was definitely a positive in that situation. But losing Machado for going on now over a week, it's been interesting to see how that goes for this team. And it hasn't been great. Obviously, we talked about where they've been in the division. As I look now, it was against the Kansas City Royals. Padres did win that game 4-0, but once again did lose Machado. And then, of course, unfortunately lost the series to Kansas City at home. That just can't happen. Look, we talked about how bad Kansas City was. Kansas City has 15 wins this season. 2 of them, they're 2-1 against the Padres. That's embarrassing, folks. But anyways, nope, I'm staying positive. I'm staying positive. And then, unfortunately, a weekend loss to the Red Sox. It was a tough one. especially considering game 2 was a very winnable game, but they lost Friday and Saturday. Michael Wacha put together a fantastic pitching performance on Sunday. However, the Padres did win that one 7-0. And this week they go out to Washington to start of a long East Coast trip. They win 2 out of 3. And I tell you what, Thursday's rubber match, essentially heading to the top of the 9th, it looked like the Padres were going to squander yet another game, which they left multiple base runners on base. Instead, it was Rougned Odor who hits a 3-run shot in the top of the 9th to give the Padres an 8-6 win. Rougned Odor was probably days away, or at least probably when Machado came back. There was a good chance that Rougned Odor was going to be designated for assignment. He just hadn't been performing, and that home run might have saved him. And he's had a very good series so far against the Yankees, which is the perfect segue. After last night, the Padres did take down the Yankees. Pretty much a lot of people weren't able to see it. Thank you, Apple TV. But anyways, the Padres did get another good pitching performance from Joe Musgrove, his best of the season. And currently, as I speak, it is top of the 7th, I believe. Padres and Yankees are tied at 1. Have it in the background, so if you've seen any reactions or anything like that, it's been to that, not to anything Bryanna said for the most part. But we shall see. Another really good pitching performance from Michael Wacha, it must be said. Once again, as we do head into the 7th, it is 1-1, keeping that really good team going forward. Now, the positives outside of, the win last night and Rougned Odor hitting a big 3-run home run have been the pitching. The pitching has kind of returned to form. Excuse me. It's been very, very interesting to see this team evolve pitching wise. Obviously, Seth Lugo is on the DL, so Ryan Weathers has had to step up. Still hoping Drew Pomeranz can come back, but he went back under the knife, so a lot of question marks there. Still no Robert Suarez, but the Padres have kind of weathered the storm, kept things going as best as possible. And now looking forward, it's going to be about the bats and Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis as Ha-Seong Kim hits a base hit and the Padres are going to take a 2-1 lead. But anyways, we have Fernando Tatis and Juan Soto absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. Fernando Tatis home runs in back-to-back games at Yankee Stadium. And we've seen him in right field on the road being heckled by fans, and he's having a lot of fun with it. I think that's just in his character. I think that's pretty cool. He's getting booed mercilessly in New York, and he's hit home runs in both games. And both times he's ran out to right field and asked the fans, why can't I hear you at the moment? Like, where are you? So it is very villain-like, and I respect it. I like it. It's very WWF from me growing up. It was the bad guy, and that's Fernando Tatis. I'm here for it, especially if he keeps performing. It is still early. I always say you can't panic until June 1st, but guess what, folks? We are days away from June 1st. So the panic button could possibly be punched soon, but the Padres can continue this as they're doing today, win a series against the Yankees. They will finish up this road trip at Miami, come home to face the Cubbies next weekend for 4, and then 2 games against Seattle before they head out back on the road. So after the Yankees, you get Miami, Chicago, and Seattle, 3 teams that the Padres are better than, period. So I would expect, 7-8 wins to get this team back on track, or else it could be time to hit that panic button. But that's all I have for the Padre report. Moving on to the ups and downs of the week. Bryanna, you had the ups this week. Who you got for the first one?
Well, I'm going to do an honorary down really quick, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
All of the pitchers that have had to get hit in the face by really hard line drives. It has happened quite a bit in the last month. And I feel for them. I know how it feels because I've been hit in the head by a line drive off a metal bat, and I was a lot closer. I feel for them. It obviously it's something that happens in baseball, but it has just been happening a lot more than obviously last season. That we're only like a full month in.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to get an honorary down in too. I won't go into too much detail. I'll just say the name and then it'll be all on you, Bryanna, to give us our first
no.
of the week.
No.
Eric Hosmer.
Honestly, I'm not mad about that.
That's all I got.
It's very much deserved.
All I got.
Hey, you knew what my reaction was. You had to know what my reaction was the moment I saw that he got designated for a second.
And you knew mine too. Oh boy, impromptu party. Just kidding. Just kidding. I don't dance on people's graves. Come on. I'm better than that. I'm not.
But considering how Hosmer has played the last.
Yeah, 100%. This is, hey, look, he got the contract. Good for him. He's set for life, hopefully. But I don't think he's going to be.
You saw my reaction when the Cubs signed him.
Yeah. It was, yeah. But anyways, trying to keep it positive. But you put the honorary down in, and I said, you know what? I can't miss this opportunity.
It was something I had just thought about when you said the Royals, because I know what happened to them last week?
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, oh, I should probably
perfect. No, it was perfect.
Put that on the day.
Perfect.
Honestly, I'm not mad about the Eric Hosmer one. I'm not mad. And neither are Padre fans. So the first up is going to be, unfortunately, the Yankees, who are thankfully losing at the moment to your Padres, and I'm very happy about it. They may have had an average week, but they did move from last to third in the division, thanks to the struggles of Toronto, who we will get to, and Boston.
Yeah.
Okay, for a second I thought I froze.
No, you're good. I think obviously for the Yankees, I want them to lose the next 2 games, including today, for obvious reasons. I want them to lose every day. But they're not the big bad wolf I think that they used to be, when I was growing up, and even in the early 2000s, things like that. But this is a team that, when healthy, is scary, but it's rare that you do see this team fully healthy. And I think for them, they're just trying to tread water until they get there, and that's a big if. If they can get to that health point, I don't know if that's going to be possible, if we're being honest. So in this division, you talked about moving up from last to third. There's going to be a lot of movement, I think, going forward. Kind of contrary to what we've seen in the National League East, where everything, besides maybe one team moving up a few spots. I think the American League East, we might even see, who knows, Baltimore might catch fire, and they might take a dip in first place pool. But I think for the most part, we're going to see fifth through third, or even fifth through second, being jumbled a lot this season. We're going to see a lot of movement here on the up list out of the American League East, and the down list, as you will see as well. But perfect segue into the first down of the week, sticking in that division. If one team moves up,
who is currently losing 3-1, mind you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. If one team moves up, another must move down, and that team was the Toronto Blue Jays. As I said in the standings update, they have dropped down to 5th place. They are 3-7 in their last 10, 27-25 overall. Certainly nothing to sneeze at, but once again, in this division that is so good, they are already 10.5 games back. Whew, even as early as it is, that seems almost like an insurmountable lead, especially when you consider they are all the way down in last. Bryanna, what are your thoughts? Toronto stumbling a bit.
I had more faith in Toronto, and I know it's still early, but I had more faith. They are currently losing 3-1. It doesn't help. And I believe they're in the bottom of the second, so the Twins are up to bat now. So yeah, that doesn't help anybody. I really wanted Toronto to do well, but in this division, obviously it's gonna go back and forth. We don't know who's gonna end up in the playoffs from that division by the end of the year.
Yeah, all 5 teams.
We don't know until we get that. Yeah, compared to the Central or the West, where 2 teams should not make the playoffs in that division. Specifically one who will never make the playoffs again until they figure it out and move or get away from their owner. Whichever one comes first.
I know which
I'm
one
going to
A's
bash.
fans
I'm
want.
going. Huh?
I know which one A's fans want.
Oh,
Selling
I
that.
know. Did you? There are pictures from like I guess after the move was announced, and there are a bunch of signs just bashing the ownership and all of that. And we're
It's
like,
the only
I'm
reason
like,
people
okay,
go to
this is
the games.
funny.
It's the only reason people go to the games.
I-
They're averaging like 4,000 people, and that's not butts in the seats. I'm sorry. That's tickets sold. It's sad. But
It's really bad. But yeah, at least Toronto's doing better than that.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Toronto can get this figured out. But it's going to be very difficult for them in that division, and everything they're going to have to deal with. But Bryanna, what you got for our second up of the week?
I'm gonna assume that this is going to be the big bad wolf of the American League. Am I right? Yeah. Okay.
I believe so.
Okay. Unfortunately, it for both of us, and I even have a frowning face next to their name. It is the what do you want from me?
No. I'm sorry. It's the Yankees.
Oh,
Yankees just
oh,
tied the game.
what just
Yankees
happened?
just tied the game.
Oh,
Sorry.
it is unfortunately the Houston Astros. I
Yeah.
thought that reaction was for the Astros.
No, it could have
It
been
could have
too,
been
but it could have been. But I knew it was coming. You know, when I didn't have the ups, but I was looking things over, and the first question I asked was, "Is Bryanna going to put Houston in the ups?" And yeah, you have
unfortunately
to.
yes.
You have to.
But no, that's what I thought your reaction was for
No.
just now. It could have been. It was
very
perfect
well could have
timing.
been.
But it very well could have been.
Yeah.
Look, Houston's 8-2 in their last 10. They've moved to sole possession of second place, and I'm not happy about it. Obviously, they got the A's this weekend, and that's not going to help anybody in that division. Then they've got the Angels next weekend. That's not going to help anybody in that division. Look, all I want is the Angels to take at like just one. If they could just take one from the Astros, I will be happy. And that's like you with the Dodgers. If you could take one.
Exactly. Exactly. Very similar in what we want and what we expect out of those.
If it was at the very start when Houston was struggling, I would have said take two.
Yeah.
But right now, the Astros are on a tear, and it doesn't help that they're playing the worst team in baseball. So just take one and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I agree.
If it's
obviously.
Ohtani pitching, actually take two because they're playing 4 games.
Oh, there
Take
you go.
two.
Get a split. Yeah, that would be very nice. And I'm pretty sure. Oh no, he
I'm
missed
sure
it.
Ohtani's going to pitch one of those. So
Yeah,
I'm
you'd
sure
have to
Ohtani's going to
imagine.
pitch one of them. So
Yeah.
just take two from the Astros and I'll be happy.
Yeah, Houston's been on a tear, and like you said, I think this is now the team. Obviously, Tampa's going to want to say something about that, as will Baltimore, but this is the big bad wolf of the American League. They're the defending champs. They're a team that have made the LCS in the last 5 years, something ridiculous like that. We don't like them. We don't respect them. They are cheaters. They did cheat. There is no doubt about that, but they are good baseball. Yeah.
I don't know who you saw. I don't know if you saw the Rangers were playing. If they lose the rest of the weekend to the Orioles, we might have a problem with the A's because they're not far. Not the A's, the Astros, because they're not far behind the Rangers, and because they're playing a team within their division, it's not going to help anybody, and it's the worst team in baseball that they're playing. So, Baltimore, as much as I love you, I really need the Rangers to win at least one of these. I don't know if they won yesterday or not, but I need the Rangers to win at least one of these.
Yeah.
To keep Houston at bay, please.
Yeah, it might be just delaying the inevitable, but yeah, try and keep them in second place for as long as possible. Moving on to the second down of the week, we have the Cleveland Guardians. They are 22-28 overall, but they're 3-7 in their last 10. This was a team that was leading the division for a good part of the year. They are now 3.5 games behind the Minnesota Twins. The Guardians had a great run last year. The small market team that could looks like this year not going to be the case. Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the struggles of the Guardians?
I mean, we knew that division was going to have a problem. It was just a matter of we didn't know who was going to be where. But I mean, considering what Cleveland has done so far, I'm okay with it. But obviously, neither of us think that they're going to stay there. They may finish third. That's probably the lowest they're going to finish unless Detroit continues to shock every single person. But look, Cleveland's going to have to do more. And I'm going to apologize right now. I have DJ Lim on my fantasy team. And I just saw that notification. So I'm apologizing right now.
Hey, you know what? At least it helps you out. It was a solo shot. We're still tied. Could have been worse. Once again, positive. I'm being positive on this podcast. It's a positive podcast.
I've got Cronenworth and Kim on my team too, and they haven't really.
Well, Kim's got you an RBI today.
Yes, but I don't know if I have him in my starters because he was day to day a couple days ago.
Yeah, he actually, I thought he was going to be down for a lot longer. Now that you bring that up. Thank you for reminding me of that. Oh, okay. But yeah, it was nice to see Kim back in the lineup.
Out of the inning, they're fine.
Sorry?
They're out of the inning. They're fine.
Yeah, just Juan Soto in playing left field sometimes is just a little shaky, and you're not terribly comfortable with it, but he's very comfortable at the dish. But anyways, it's very unfortunate times in Cleveland going forward. But Bryanna, third up of the week.
I know how much you hate it because you wish it was you. It's going to be the San Francisco Giants, who are also 8-10 in their last, or 8-2 in their last 10. I cannot speak today. And they are third in the West, behind obviously the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. And I know for a fact that you want your Padres to be in that position right now, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean the Giants are playing good ball. I don't think they're better than the Padres. I don't think the Diamondbacks are better than the Padres, but they're playing better.
I also don't think that this streak for the Giants are going to last long.
Yeah. It could be kind of their one run this year. And I don't think it'll be enough. I don't worry too much about the Giants, and maybe that's a problem. Maybe that's
got to get past them first.
Sorry?
You have to get past them first.
Oh, well, of course. But I mean, at this point, it's not about who's in third or second. It's about getting there. It doesn't matter who it is. And at this point, I think I fear obviously the Diamondbacks much more than the Giants. Like you said, they've gone on a run, but what is this going to continue? Do we see this team play 700 ball the rest of the year? I don't see it happening. But they are playing really well right now, and Gabe Kapler is a manager that knows how to get these guys rolling. I mean, it's just 2 years ago that this was the best team in all of baseball, at least the regular season, and then kind of had that unfortunate situation where they had to play the Dodgers straight away. But he knows how to win with this team. So he's got them rolling, but I don't think this continues, but it is good for them right now. Trying to keep it positive, so we'll keep the Padres out of this one. But the
Brewers have been struggling, so it really doesn't help you.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. But once again, it's about just winning the games that are in front of us. I try not to worry too much. I mean, fourth place is kind of panic time, but it is still a point where I can expect this team to hopefully pull themselves up into second place when it's all said and done. But we shall see. Moving on to the final down of the week. It is in the National League East. The Philadelphia Phillies. They looked like they were looking like the Cardinals, going to kind of right the ship. Not the case. They've dropped back. They are 4-6. They've dropped down to fourth in the division. It's been a really rough year. That pennant hangover, if you will, for this team, even with Bryce Harper coming back, months before expected. He learned how to play first base so he could play and not have to throw the ball, essentially. So it's going to be DHing and playing first base. Going to be very interesting to see how that goes. Bryanna, what are your thoughts? The Phillies still struggling, lost at sea in fourth place.
We had more faith in them at the start. Before the season started, we had more faith in them at the start of the season, and that's just slowly been, obviously haven't figured it out like Cardinals have. The Phillies have to do something if they want to turn the season around. But it's still early.
Oh, and unfortunately, it does look like we've lost Bryanna. I think she was having some connection issues, as I think you may have heard. There she is. She's popping back in. There we are. There she is.
I kind of saw it coming too.
Yeah, I did too.
I was literally about. Yeah, I had already frozen once, so I kind of saw it coming. So again, I'm apologizing for my internet issues.
No worries.
But yeah, we had more faith in the Phillies at the start. We still have the All-Star break. Things could change. Obviously, like when the Nationals won the World Series, they were really bad at the start of the season and then around after the All-Star break. So it could be a similar situation. Obviously, like you said, that this was where the Phillies kind of were at this point last year, and they ended up making it to the World Series. So never know.
Yeah, agreed. This isn't, it's way too early to count the Phillies out. Maybe in the same way you'd maybe count other teams out, Toronto or others like that. But I think Philadelphia, they at least know how to get back, or at least come from this area, this spot in the season, the struggles, and get to that pinnacle that they did last year. It's just a question of will they? That doesn't always work out. They did get a lot of luck last year as well. But we'll see if they get that as well. But that is all we have for you on this episode of the Changeup. Bryanna, you got any final thoughts for us today?
No, but I'm also worried I might freeze again and out again. So I'm good.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it was we got through most of it. I tell you, I was a little worried how we were going to get through it. We did the best we could. Sometimes a lot of these things are out of our hands. We'd love to have all that reliable internet all the time, but it doesn't always work out like that. So my final thought, it is Memorial Day weekend. Obviously, for a lot of us, that means that it is going to be a 3-day weekend. So with that being said, be safe. Also make sure, oh, Bryanna's back. You got anything you wanted to add there, Bryanna?
Nope, I'm just gonna.
Got it. All right. But yeah, it is going to be a 3-day weekend for a lot of us. And while, you know, a lot of us are going to enjoy that time with family, friends, and barbecues, things like that, please do make sure that you take a moment and, you know, truly reflect on why we have the 3-day weekend. There is a difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. We should always celebrate our veterans every single day, but Memorial Day is the day and time that we kind of think back to all the people that didn't make it home and sacrifice their lives for us. So please do take a moment to think about them and while you're enjoying the 3-day weekend. But with that being said, we thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Changeup presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to y'all very soon. Take care.